Hello. In a recent video, I'd commented something about truth seekers, and that truth seekers are people that are all over the spiritual scene, especially kind of the New Age and Eastern philosophy sort of scene, right? In Western Hinduism and Buddhism and Taoism and Tantrism and paganism and Wicca and the channeling movement and all of these sorts of groups, the spiritual healing movement, etc., etc. Lots and lots of people define themselves as seekers, and that is in fact what they are, because they want to be going around all over the place seeking, but not actually finding. And in fact, the reason that they're in the whole scene, and a lot of what the whole scene of Western spirituality, including from Western occultism to Western Buddhism and the westernized versions of Eastern philosophies, and pretty much any of these movements that came out of the 60s, you will see a whole bunch of the people involved in them are people that are not just not finders, right, but are dedicated, and that this is what they're in the movement for. They're in the movement to just avoid finding, to avoid learning or discovering or changing. And that being in this scene is the way that they distract themselves from having to confront themselves, from having to create change within themselves, or from having to integrate that rift within themselves, or overcome that narcissism that keeps them separate from the rest of the universe. So basically, truth seekers are bunk. And this is really obvious when you start to think about it, because truth isn't something you need to seek. It's right there. It's in front of you. Truth is always immediately accessible. It's as accessible as the air. It's chi, right? Truth is chi, and chi is everywhere. So there are people that make up this game about being truth seekers to try to go off looking for truth in all the wrong places, specifically as a way to buy time and to feel better about themselves without actually having to find truth. Why? Well, because finding truth is really painful and challenging. Like I said, it's right in front of you. You can find truth immediately if you want to. So if you don't do it, it's because finding truth usually hurts. Finding truth is something that inevitably requires change. And not the kind of peripheral changes that truth-seeking requires, where you might, become a vegetarian or start to wear different clothing or put on some jewelry or move to some, go to some ashram or any of those sorts of things, right? It requires some much more fundamental changes, because those peripheral changes truth seekers are really cool with, right? And most people are, right? Because it's exciting and interesting, and it's a little bit hard, but fundamentally doable. And it gives you this feeling of accomplishing something without it all being too much, right? And it lets you impress other people, or at least feel like you're impressing other people, by showing how serious you are and how big you're changing your life, right? Again, without being too much. But actual truth is almost always too much, because truth requires, to get truth, which is right there in front of you, it just requires that you burn away everything that is not truth. The problem with finding truth is that it demands things of you. And these things that it demands make it clear just how fake you are. And that to actually find truth, you have to stop existing as you are. You won't be you anymore. You'll be something else. And this is often terrifying to the person that is confronting truth. The problem with seeking truth is that seeking truth doesn't go anywhere. You can run around in circles, always on the circumference, always at the edge of truth, always where truth isn't, acting like you're looking for truth, without ever having to actually risk running into truth. And you can do this through belief, or you can do this through skepticism. Both of these can be other ways of seeking truth without actually finding it, right? One of the reasons that some people have this fear about finding truth, they want to be seekers. They think it's, there are a lot of people in our current society, from the boomers onwards, that feel like it's extremely cool if you tell them, oh, I'm a truth seeker, I'm seeking truth, man. But they're not very keen on people that claim to have truth, right? Because then those are like, Christian conservatives or something like that. They're people that are believers, right? And believers are very dangerous. Okay, so the fact is, though, that a believer is just another type of person that is truth seeking, that is getting around the truth, right? That isn't to say that everybody who is in a conventional or established religion is one of these going around in circles, truth seekers, truth finders, right? Truth searchers. But that an awful lot of them, just like an awful lot of them in every other movement, are, because they're just embracing the idea of blind belief. So they're instead of saying, well, I'm looking at this, and now I'm looking at that, and this seems to really work. Okay, they've picked one thing and decided, I'm just going to screw it. I'm just going to believe in this. I don't know if it's true or not. I don't even care anymore. I'm just going to pretend. I'm going to engage in, as Crowley wants to find truth, the power of, as Crowley wants to find belief, rather, the power of convincing yourself of something you suspect to be untrue, right? So you choose to believe as a way to avoid having to actually test and confront truth, right? To actually find truth. And you can tell among people who have conventional spirituality the difference between someone who's a believer and someone who has actually had at least some kind of a confrontation with truth. And on the other hand, being a skeptic is just like being a truth seeker, except that, for most skeptics, because certainly, if you want to call, Nietzsche a skeptic, that's a very different story than your typical modern atheist or something like that are just running around going everywhere going, I don't want to find truth, I don't want to find anything, and then thinking that that's, a good way to go about things. But all of these things are totally different. They're ways to run around through life without ever actually having to confront truth. So what you have to do, if you want to actually confront truth, is from the start, you have to accept in principle that you need to be a truth finder, however painful that might be. Then you can gradually go about unveiling that truth. You don't need to go looking for it. It's right in front of you. The truth is always right in front of you. But what you have to do is go peeking under that veil that you have intentionally put. It's your veil. It's not the universe. It's not something else. It's not past lives. It's you. You are in denial. You have created this narcissistic separation from reality. And to overcome that requires this process most of the time, where what you'll want to do is bit by bit peek under that veil that you've used, that TV screen that you've used to project your own illusions on the world and say that's the world instead of what's actually the world, or project your own illusions about yourself and say that's what I am instead of what you really are, right? And then bit by bit, painfully as it is, look at what is actually under that, what's actually the real truth, a little bit at a time, by using practices and disciplines in a process of cultivation, of cultivating yourself. What are you cultivating for? You're cultivating yourself to be ready to find ever more truth, so you can actually bear truth, so you can stand it. Truth is divine power. It's gone, right? And so if you're working with going through that veil of chi to find that truth that is right in front of you, and the processes, the exercise of spirituality, of meditation, of all these things are just to make it easier for you to stand the truth. So you can stand it, and then you're willing to do the things that duty will demand of you, the duty that comes from actually knowing what is true. Because once you know what is true by itself, that doesn't change anything. What changes is if you see that truth, then you'll know exactly what you actually must do. And so some people will see a truth for a moment. They'll realize what it means, what the consequence of that means, of what you must do as a person in your life, and the fact that it'll require that you change into something completely different than what you are, and will run away screaming from it, right? They'll go right back to pretending to be seeking. So that now they'll know that's where truth is. Truth is over there, so I just never have to go there again, and I'll be perfectly happy. And they'll go around spending the whole rest of their lives going around in circles at that one spot where they did actually see a glimpse of truth. If you do that, then having seen truth doesn't actually do anything for you. But if you've seen truth and realize that it brings with it a sense of a kind of a duty to your own being and to the universe and to the future, to who comes after you, that you do what truth demands of you, however hard it is, then you start to change, right? And then you become someone different. And this is all very, very hard. There's nothing about this is easy. And there's no easy way to do it. So if you're looking for an easy way, you're probably doing some variety of truth seeking as a way to avoid truth finding, right? If you're looking for the easy answer, there is none. The easy answer is, I guess, to lie to yourself until you die and then just keep doing that. The difficult thing is confronting the truth, realizing what that truth demands, and then doing it. And it's hard, and it doesn't necessarily mean that your life is going to suddenly become wonderful either, because that's one of the ways that you avoid truth, is by looking for these fantasies that'll somehow magically fix what's wrong inside of you, right? Where the separation is within you. If you're doing what is true, the one thing that it does is that it gives you a purpose. It gives you purpose that that you won't find doing anything else, not in the same way. Because it's how you will do the things that actually matter. So that's what I meant by truth seekers being bunk. If you don't want to be a truth seeker, if you want to be a truth finder, there are many ways to do it. I'm not trying to say this is the only way, but if you're interested, check out the Yifa Society channel. And if you're looking for a process of exercises that are for people that actually want to be truth finders and not just truth seekers, which means that it won't be exciting, or it won't be, well, some people do find it exciting, but it isn't meant to be exciting. It isn't meant to be entertaining. It's meant to be hard. It's meant to be challenging, and it's meant to change you. Then consider applying for membership in the Yifa Society. And if not, if you just like this video, share the video, subscribe, and like the video, and feel free to pass it on to anyone you want. And if you want more of these sorts of teachings, check out the Yifa Society newsletter, which the link is in the description here. If you sign up for the newsletter, you'll get a newsletter once a month by email, which will have links to the various teachings I've done over the course of the month. And it will also, in the registration for when you get the first email from signing up for the newsletter, you'll get a link there to the PDF of The Path and the Power, which is my interpretation and commentary on the Tao Te Ching, the companion volume to my published commentary and translation of the I Ching, the Magician's I Ching. So it's completely free, and sign up and try to find truth and stop seeking it. Thank you very much.